Hey, Jamie Stenhouse here, currently in Barcelona, Spain, standing in an amazing piece of work. And I kind of want to talk about that topic today, the topic of work and how all work should be quote unquote easy. Now, obviously, if you heard that, your first reaction is, you know what, work isn't easy, Jamie. There's certain things that I do within the project or within the company that I'm not currently enjoying. And I get it, those tasks, those operations or those processes that you don't enjoy might not actually be easy. You might have a team around you for them, but the team might not be performing to how you want them to. And that won't be quote unquote easy. So when I say that all work is easy, it's really a mindset shift rather than anything else. Because there's always going to be challenges regardless of what work you're doing or regardless of what project you're taking on. But if you can approach it from the mindset of all work is easy, then you're able to embrace it a lot more. And on that topic as well, I think when we do begin to work and there are problems in our projects or our companies or our teams or even in our personal life, I do believe that it is an accumulation of small problems that weren't corrected at the beginning of the project or the journey or anything else like that. So what you should be doing is really front-loading as much work as you can before the project begins or right as it kicks off, because what tends to happen is if we take shortcuts at the beginning, we end up playing hectic work games and working crazy hours to try to correct it, either before launch or when things get out of hand. You can see this at play in health as well, in the health industry. So when someone gets really unhealthy and their health gets off the rails, it could have been avoided if they put in the work at the beginning of their lives. So, during their teenage years or as they were 20 and that, they could have created a lifestyle, had friends or began to learn how to train and eat properly at that age, rather than waiting till they're 40, 45 when the problem has gone so far out of hand, they have to put in so much excess amount of work to correct the problem that could have been avoided if they just put in work at the beginning. And when I say work, I just mean anything that requires your full attention and a change in what you do every day. So, for that health example, they would have to change their nutrition. They might have to change their friends. They might have to change their lifestyle. They might even have to change where they work. And of course, that gets a little bit harder as you get older, and it's going to require a lot more work and a lot more energy to correct that problem. So I think a lot of problems come from people not putting in work at the beginning of the project, whatever it is, or if it's a product or even in your personal life. Whatever problems you guys have or whatever problems you're facing could have been avoided with a bit of work in the front end, in the beginning of the project, okay? And I also think people work to the point where work feels like work rather than where work feels like a reward, right? So if you're working 8 hours a day like everyone else, then of course work is going to feel like work. But if you were to work an extra 3 hours or even 4 hours to make it 12, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours, right? If you were to work 12 hours rather than 8 hours per day, then maybe at the 11th hour you get rewarded. Maybe you have a breakthrough. Maybe you close that client. Maybe you discover something new. Right? But that wouldn't happen because you're treating work like work, or you're only working until it feels like work rather than until it feels like a reward. So you got to work up to the point where you get a reward from your work rather than it just being really hectic and really filled with activity. Okay, so work until you get a reward from the project or from the goal you're pursuing, rather than just working until everyone else is working or working until what is considered to be normal. All right, so I think a lot of people's problems come from not doing work in the beginning of the project or the journey or whatever they're trying to pursue. I think people don't work enough to make work feel like a reward rather than just a activity that consumes their time. And I think if you were to approach it from the mindset of that all work is easy, although it might not be at certain times, then you're going to enjoy the process a lot more. So when I begin a project that I don't enjoy, I simply say to myself again and again, all work is easy, all work is easy, all work is easy. Although it might not be, and I might be lying to myself, at least it creates the momentum for myself to begin feeling like, this isn't too bad. And whatever problem I'm facing right now, or whatever challenge I'm facing right now, it can be corrected with the right amount of work. So if you are in the middle of a problem or a challenge, if it be with your company or your product or your health or anything like that, or even your relationships, it just requires more work. It just requires more work until you get a reward from the work, right? So give it more attention. Whatever the problem is, give it more attention. Give it all your attention, because work fixes everything, and you would be surprised what happens when you actually commit to the work. So beyond just the 8-9 hours, or beyond the passive attention, you actually fully engage in it. Work begins to feel like a reward. You look forward to it because you're getting a reward every time you put it in. So when you work up to the point where work feels like work and you quit or call it a night, then you're not getting anything from it. But you want to work past that point. You want to work a little bit later, a little bit harder, a little bit longer, to the point where you get a reward from the work that you're putting in. Another thing to keep in mind is just be aware of how much work it does actually take to achieve a certain outcome. And you ask yourself, how serious are you about the outcome? How serious do you want that goal? How much do you want to achieve that certain result? Because if you want to go all in, and it's hard to go in, it's harder than you think to go all in, you need to spend every waking 60 seconds doing an action of work towards a goal if you want it that bad, right? And that sounds crazy. And it's so hard, because when you begin operating and begin doing a task every 60 seconds, or begin moving forward in a task every 60 seconds, you begin to find that you chew through your work a lot quickly, and it does drain you, because you're proactively looking for the next thing to do. You're proactively looking for the next move that you can do that will push you towards the outcome, and that will help to amplify your work. So if you're serious about it, you need to begin looking at how you spend every minute of every day, and there should be no downtime, right? If there's any downtime where you're not progressing, where you're not working, then that's time wasted. That's time that could be spent into the quote-unquote work, or into the project, or into the health, or whatever problem you're trying to correct. Okay, so when you look at it and you have a problem, or you can sense that a problem is coming up, it's probably because you haven't been putting in enough work into that area, or you've been sidetracked, or you didn't put in enough work into the beginning of that journey or that project. So just to recap, the 3 points or 4 points were: begin putting in work before you needed it to actually work, or begin putting in work into the front end of your project or your company or your journey, and you'll save a lot of headache down the line. Next point was to work to the point where work feels like a reward rather than actual work. Okay, many people work up until the point where work just simply feels like work, but if you keep pushing through it, you got to get a reward from it. You got to get a reward from your work. So why would you stop until that happens? So work until you get a reward from your work. And just remember that all work is really easy, and it corrects any problem you guys have. So if you have a massive problem in your life or your company, just be aware that work can fix mostly any problem, right? A bit of work, or long work, or a lot of work from a big team can correct any problem. So there's no point in being upset about any problem. There's no point in being emotionally attached to the outcome. Just put in more work to correct the problem and generate a new solution. And of course, be aware about where you spend your time, because if you do really want the outcome, if you want it that bad, then you guys need to put in so much work every minute of the day. If you look at someone like Gary V, this guy has 8-minute meetings, 4-minute meetings, 3-minute meetings. He's utilizing every minute of every day to do the work, right? And I really admire that from him, and I think it's something that we could all take away, that we spend half a minute here, 2-3 minutes there, 8 minutes here on things that don't really matter and that don't progress our future. So what you want to do is you want to ensure that you're utilizing your time properly. I get it that people have to chill and relax, but then you have to ask yourself, are you in the wrong industry, or are you doing the wrong type of work, or are you not working enough to get a reward from it? So usually work without a reward feels like a drain, but work with a reward at the end of it feels amazing, and you shouldn't be drained or tired after that. Okay, so anyway, that's a little rant about work from Spain. Remember that all work is easy. It's a very good affirmation that I use, and I say to myself again and again whenever I approach a new project or a new challenge or a new opportunity. I just remind myself that all work is easy, all work is easy, all work is easy, and work fixes everything. So any problem you guys have, either now or down the line, just remember those two affirmations. All work is easy and work fixes everything.